But actually, one thing I want to get into is not all crazy stuff we see in the sport is worth talking about.
John and I have that conversation quite frequently.
Sometimes it's crazy and not in a positive way. And the more attention we give to it, the more it dilutes the sport.
Amen to that. Well,
good conversation. That was a great talk. You guys have a good
night. Well, let's just start the show officially. Welcome back to World's Strongest Opinions, episode 47 with Dan Hughes. Dan has been really, I mean, you've been dominating the podiums in strongman for a few years now. I know you took a second in class in 2023. You won your nationals pro card, SC pro card, and what was it?
21.
Mm-hmm. And second at OSG in 22 as well. And coming back this year for hopefully a first place podium, man. Yeah. Welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Yeah. So like we were saying, I mean, we just like to chit chat on this show, man. Because, but I want to get back to what you're saying about like not everything is good to or worth talking about in strongman. And John and I talk about this a lot of times because social media will get like all the buzz with some topic, and there's like peer pressure for everybody to jump on board because people really care about XYZ. And you know, I always bring up to the fact to John, I'm like, let's just wait it out and see what happens, because if we jump on the bandwagon right now, we're definitely going to be on the wrong side in the end.
Yeah.
Especially because we only record like once a week. So often people will be like, you guys have to talk about this. Like on Saturday, they'll be like, this is some big event. And then by the time Tuesday rolls around, it's like, we've all forgotten it. I'm like, it wasn't worth it.
Exactly. And I mean, that's the context of this conversation for those listening is talking about how crazy stuff happens all the time in strongman, but very rarely is it actually crazy. Is it something that should be talked about, and it's just crazy and we give it more credence than it probably should have. But that's not specific to strongman either. We see it. The people who are listening to this and the people whose Instagram feeds are filled with strength sports probably see it the most in strongman because that's their algorithm. But I also follow English Premier League and like European football way more religiously than I follow strength sports, actually, because that's the pro athlete I wish I became. Well,
why didn't you?
I mean, so
I mean, you're doing pretty well in strongman, so
yeah, and I'm almost making as much money as, you know, like Cristiano Ronaldo makes. So we're basically the same.
Yeah, basically the same.
Yeah. No, but you see it in all sports. Like, it's crazy some of the stuff I see in we'll use Premier League for an example. Like, there will be one conversation that people lip read between a manager and a player coming off the pitch. And then 20 minutes later, there's like tabloids are just filled with, oh, what did, you know, Eric Ten Hag say to Jadon Sancho? And then there's tweets about it. And then by the end of it, you're like, nothing actually happened.
Right.
And it's all this nonsense going on.
So I'm always fascinated with tabloids and, I mean, media getting all crazy about somebody that they really hate. And in the end, they do the exact opposite of what they think their intention is to get rid of them. They just give them so much attention that they just never go away.
Yeah. I mean, that's actually a huge political like strategy, is people intentionally say outlandish shit.
Right.
Just to boost them through the polls, because, you know, it's all press is good press.
That's right.
And everybody does it. But it's wild, and I hate it. And occasionally I give into it. I won't lie. Occasionally, it gets us, but
sure,
it bothers me.
Yeah, I do too, man. It's one of the reasons I try to stay off of social media as much as I can, because it's so easy to get sucked into the drama of everything.
Yep, I agree.
Especially like the
I try and keep it light. Keep it light, keep it silly. It's strong, man. Whatever my caption, or no matter what the edits in my video are, how many likes it gets doesn't actually affect how I perform.
That's right.
And so, I mean, I do get some joy out of making my videos. I won't pretend that I don't. But But like, I understand there's no correlation between that. And I also see that when I look at other competitors, whether I compete against them or different weight classes or whatever, it's like, I think it's easy to be like, wow, this guy's really good. He has 55K followers, which like in this context, we can understand why that is a very silly statement. But I think a lot of people, even I've been guilty of that at times. You like look like, wow, this guy's super popular. And then you realize, oh, wait, never mind. I competed against him. He's actually not that good.
But he's actually making more money off of social media.
Yeah, exactly. Luckily,
he's actually getting his travel paid for.
Yeah, luckily getting into strongman was not my primary financial career or my primary means of income. If so, I would not be on a computer. I would be on a well, we wouldn't be doing this because I'd be homeless.
Right.
You'd just be at the public library. There would be people in the background being like, shh. And you're like, sorry.
It's okay. I'm a strong man.
I mean, I think if you work really hard, you can make like $30,000 a year.
Yeah, which is like, I guess more than a teacher makes in some places around the country.
Like where?
I don't know. So I actually don't know.
I mean that's a fair comment because teachers make shit in this country.
Yeah, exactly. I don't know. I'm still pretty shook. I think I just now realized that inflation is bad because I went to buy a bottle of Hendrick's gin for my wife, and I haven't bought one in a while. It was $61 for just regular Hendrick's gin, and I came home and I asked her, "What would you say one of these bottles costs?" And she's like, $25. And I said, that's exactly what I said. Why is it $61 now? It wasn't like a special reserve or anything like that, but this country's in trouble. Gin is through the roof.
I mean, there's liquor stores though. They're just like, they're scam artists, man. I have a buddy that I don't know where the hell he's going, but he's always sending me pictures of like Eagle Rare and Blanton's and stuff for like $200. And I'm like, bro, what? I was like, you should take that up and just tell them to shove it up their ass.
Yeah. In Louisville, you can get, well, pretty much anywhere in Kentucky, you can get any type of, not even just bourbon, but like pretty much all liquor is crazy cheap there.
Yeah. Well, I went to one in Bardstown that was just obscenely overpriced, but
well, that's Bardstown, and they're probably too close to the distilleries,
right?
But like in Louisville, where Angel's Envy is in Louisville, and there's another big one in there, but I mean, you can get
Peerless, man. Peerless is in Louisville.
Yeah, Peerless. That's the other one. It's like a block away from Angel's Envy, but you can get Bullet Rye for like $16 at the liquor store down the street from my house.
Nice.
And even on military bases, that's like a $25-$30 bottle.
Yeah.
Well, I don't drink liquor that much anymore. I pretty much just beer.
Were you just drinking a beer?
Yeah, I just got. This is Ryan got there. I don't drink liquor anymore.
Oh, you don't drink liquor? Okay. You just drink beer now.
Yeah.
You sell alcohol.
You can't get drunk off of beer.
Well, I mean, I guess it depends who you are. I mean, we come to Colorado, man. We've got like 14% beers here, man.
The first
you
time
can get drunk off of that.
First time I went to Colorado, I was 24, and I was on my way moving to Alaska from Georgia, and I stopped there drinking with some Army friends. They failed to mention the like altitude because this is in Colorado Springs.
Yeah.
And I remember drinking like 5 drinks and just feeling like I was absolutely trashed. And they started laughing at me. And I was like, how are you guys not as drunk as me? And they were like, we are a mile in the air. So we get drunk really fast. But the second time and third time I went there, I did not make that mistake.
Yeah. I mean, it's fair. It probably took me a solid 3 months to acclimate to the elevation here when I moved. And
do you think it helped you with training? Like when you travel, doesn't?
No, man. Because I mean, strongman's all anaerobic, so we're holding our breath every rep. So it may help a little bit, like to recover between events, but I don't notice any performance difference during the actual event.
I'd imagine if you're constantly living in that state, it probably doesn't help you as much as it would help you in like a oxygen deprivation situation where you can do it for like a short period and then go back to like.
I mean, it definitely, I definitely have the advantage of other people coming here to compete. But going down to like sea level.
Yeah.
Honestly, it's almost harder to breathe.
Air's thicker.
The air's thicker.
Especially when you go like Texas or the Southeast, the air's just wet.
Yeah.
Moist.
Yeah, it just sucks. So you're going to be at OSG this year.
Yep.
I'm going to be at OSG. I'm probably
I saw that.
I'm going to probably suck ass, but I'm going to be there.
Well, go into it with a different attitude. Yeah. That attitude's certainly not going to help you at all.
Right. Well, I mean, I'm only saying that because I have not done any consistent strongman training since last November. And I'm coming back after, I was throwing in Highland Games all summer and coming back. I'm just not, I'm going to go and give it everything I've got, obviously. But yeah, it's a very short prep for me to come back from the weakened state that I'm in.
Yeah. That's kind of what ASM this year was for me to a degree. It was like, it was my last competition while I was in the Army, so I was never going to pull out of it. But I think if under other circumstances, I probably would have pulled out just because, I mean, I was moving, changing, like transitioning out of the Army, moving cities, all that stuff that comes with that, and trying to balance training, not successfully.
Right.
I was the lightest I've been going in on the day of the show. That's the lightest I've been probably in 4 years on the day of a show.
What was that?
I think 227. I weighed in. The crazy thing is I weighed in at 228 and the next morning I was 227. My body wasn't in super good condition. I mean, objectively, it wasn't that bad. It was just like, that was a competition that was so stacked that like anything less than my absolute best wasn't going to make the podium. And I did my absolute best. And all of those guys were so good that like we've all been to those competitions where we may have performed poorly and still got out with like a better than maybe we should have gotten.
Right.
ASM this past year was definitely not one of those competitions. Like, and I talked to like guys who finished ahead of me and below me were both like, there is no room for error with this lineup.
Right.
ASM's awesome and terrible. It's awesome if you're somebody like Jeff Lee and you're good enough to win. It's bad if you're me, because you go in there and you're like, dropping 1 point against some of these guys is going to just like in one event is going to wreck me. Because it's not like at OSG, you can finish one event and be 20 points ahead of somebody. And then you only have to do like half as good on the next event to still remain a couple points ahead of them.
Right.
There's none of that. There's no recalculation. It's even smaller than, Clash or certainly Nationals, anything like that. I think we ended up with, I might be wrong, but I think it was like 12. It's no more than 15 guys that actually showed up and competed. And so the point spreads were not big.
Right.
I mean, they were big between me and Jeff, but not big between Nick Hine, Zach McCarley, and Jeff. But it was a world record or co-setting the world record for farmers. But even that was a disappointment for me because I did 430 a hand 3 or 4 times in training, all between I did it for 15 feet, 20 feet, and 30 feet in training, like pretty comfortably. And there's even days I was supposed to go heavier than that, but it was just like, well, I don't think I have another 25-pound jump in me or whatever, because the jumps are pretty big. So it was like, well, I don't have 460 a hand, so I'm not going to bother trying to do that.
I think that's just absolutely incredible, though, that so many UNO5s are carrying 400 plus these days, man.
All of us got mad. Even guys who like did better than they thought were like, I thought this event was going to be done after like all of us. I went in there not overconfidently, but like I even talked to other competitors like Jeff and McCarley. Like they all agreed that I was probably going to take that, like be the sole winner in that. And I believe that too. I knew I could do it. And then we look around and I think like 6 or 7 people made it to the 400 a hand. I know Brandon Burley made it to 400 a hand because he's the guy who went next to me. Obviously the 4 of us who got 400 and touched the 430, but all of us were looking around like, what is happening? We were all talking about pro heavyweights that we knew that couldn't carry.
Dude, I'm like, it's not that long ago that a 105 picking up 400 a hand, just picking it up,
just like
was
that
like a huge deal.
insane. Yeah,
that was insane. I mean, it just kind of goes to show like how quickly the sport just continues, like the bar continues to rise and rise and rise and rise.
Yeah, all of us were looking around like, because I think that was the second event too. Yeah, I'm pretty sure that was the second event. And
right.
A couple of us were looking around, we're like, this is going to be a hard competition.
Right.
Yeah, they're like, no more mistakes. And then I proceeded to make several mistakes. But it was really fun. It was, I think I told, I don't know if I posted about it or maybe I just reached out to James, who, James Steffenbaugh put on the competition. That is far, like on a personal standpoint, it was probably the worst performance I had. And I don't just mean placing, just like all around. Like I wasn't super happy with how I performed. It's probably the worst performance I had in 3 years or so. But probably my favorite competition I did. It was very well run. Athletes, we knew what we were doing. It's intimate enough that there's no like weird large group of people. The event was cool. There's some issues that happened with the event as far as the bodybuilders not doing stuff that they said they were going to do, but like we didn't notice that from the athlete perspective.
Right.
I watched clips. I have not gone back and watched the whole show. I'm sure I will probably in a couple years after I stop competing and I start living in the past.
Yeah.
But like I've watched clips, like the production and the name of the production crew escapes me right now. Sorry for that, but they did an excellent job. And it was really cool to watch. Like that, you have the weights, they have the names, they have Nick Canby commentating and pulling athletes aside in between events. And I thought it was a really fun experience. My first ASM, probably my last for a while because I'm gonna have to take a hiatus after OSG for a little bit. But I was really glad that I did it regardless of how I performed.
Yeah. Yeah. I like to try to shout out James here when I can, man. He puts on good competitions.
Mm-hmm.
Dude's super smart, very organized. So Strongman Corpse got a very good, I don't know what his actual position is with Strongman Corp these days, but I don't
know the title of it. I know he's, at least from my perspective, for what it's worth, I know he's what makes it like he's the ground soldier that makes it all work.
Yeah. Yeah, things have improved dramatically since James really started.
Yeah, I've only really been involved. Like I did my first nationals in 2020. And then I did 2021. So those are the only two I've been to. But like since 2020, I believe he's gotten much more involved in it.
Right.
And I'll be at this nationals, obviously not competing, but my friend Patrick Santiago, he's competing this year. I think he has a pretty good chance of winning it.
Nice.
I know he's got some stiff competition, but he's done pretty well. Hasn't competed as much as I would have liked him to up to this point, but he's a Green Beret, so he hasn't had the same amount of time to compete and train.
Right.
A lot of his but
some people just have it though, man.
Yeah.
Because I've known a few people over the years that just kind of popped into strongman. They had a pretty solid background to begin with, but just popped in and got their pro card in a couple of years.
Yeah.
There's those people out there. So,
yeah, I was going to say, what is it? One of our sponsored athletes, Cameron Peters, like he started strongman and like a year into it, like got fourth at OSG with like very, like if he hadn't been injured, like would have been crazy to see. But also briefly, do want to shout out Brandon Burley, great friend of the show. It's nice that you brought him up.
Oh, I love Brandon.
And then Nick Hine coming in fourth at Ultimate Strongman Worlds. That's huge.
Oh, yeah.
Especially to travel. Like, anytime you can win a contest or like get that close going overseas.
And also Johnny Waz, old 105, winning his second Masters World Championship with Ultimate
Right.
Strongman. So that was pretty cool too to see him. I think he's done. I talked to Johnny almost every day actually. He's done. It's crazy how many. I'm sure I'm going to get the number wrong, but he's done well into the hundreds of competitions.
Oh, I'm sure.
Over the years.
Johnny was like a pro when I was just like starting out.
Yeah. He was a pro. I think Johnny was a pro when Jesus was walking.
Yeah.
I think his first competition was the Greco-Roman.
I mean, it's pretty old. So
no, but Johnny's great. And so that was cool to see him. And then Mike O'Connor, he was doing pretty well, but he got injured. I actually was talking to him earlier today.
I figured as much.
Like
I haven't.
So he had to drop out.
That sucks.
Yeah, he posted a picture on his story, and it was an odd picture. And I told him, I was like, I had to rotate my phone to try and figure out what I'm looking at, because you can tell it's a bruise. You just can't tell what part of the body it is. But it was cool. I know. I wanted to do that show, but with everything like moving cities and getting on, it was just and starting school. Obviously, wasn't feasible.
Yeah. What are you going to school for? I think you said you posted something about being a firefighter.
So I'm in the process of applying to the fire department for Cincy Fire Department or Cincinnati Fire Department. But I'm currently at school for psychology at Xavier University.
Nice.
Yeah, so I already have my undergrad in criminal justice from Citadel back in like 2014. But to apply to the grad program for PhD in psychology, I needed basically the equivalent to a minor in psychology. So
Gotcha.
I'm kidding. And I already had some classes, so I'm just finishing. So I'm taking 15 credit hours this semester. Turns out college is pretty easy as an adult who's had a career. So I was like, I won't lie, I was pretty apprehensive about it when it was starting, just because it was like the unknown. Because I went to a military college, so like I also understood that my college experience was rather unique. So I didn't know what to expect. And after the first week of school, which is mostly just going over like the syllabi and stuff like that, I came home and looked at Natalie and I was like, school is going to be so easy. And so far it has. I haven't gotten anything less than an A on any of my exams. So
Nice.
It also helps when all of your classes are something that you're interested in. So
right. So you're planning on like becoming a psychologist, psychiatrist?
Yeah. So I'm actually, the goal starting this semester was I wanted to become a clinical psychologist. So earn either a PhD or a PsyD. But the more I have learned about the different fields, I'm not as dead set on that. So there's some other options. Industrial and organizational psychology is pretty interesting. I've kind of known it was a thing. I didn't have a name to put to it, but it's actually, a lot of it is similar to some of the things I've done in the Army, as far as standing up new organizations and like developing systems and how you hire and evaluate people in new positions that didn't previously exist elsewhere. So that's really interesting to me. So I'm taking one class that is just called that, but it's taught by a guy. For that, you only need a master's as opposed to a doctorate of practice. And they're kind of like, from what I understand, they work on the same level that people with MBAs do, but kind of it can be the HR role, but not necessarily. The HR role is kind of an aspect of it. But they do a lot of consulting. Like my professor did a lot of consulting for like Fortune 50 companies and traveled all over the country and all over the world to do stuff. So that sounds cool. But I have some time. And then so the firefighter thing is kind of actually like a side quest that I want to do. And I don't think I'm going to be a firefighter for the next 20 years if I get selected for it. I've wanted to do it for a long time. There's been different points where I was planning on getting out of the Army over the last 10 years that I thought that's what the next step was going to be. That wasn't in the plans until about 6 months ago. My wife sent me an announcement saying that Cincinnati Fire Department was hiring through like the window over the summer. So I applied the second day it was open. And then so I took the written test for it yesterday. Like I passed the stages, so now I'm just waiting to see when we take the physical test.
Nice.
There's a couple more steps after that, but so that will be 7.5 months of training though.
Right.
So that's why, like, obviously I'll work out and fitness is a big aspect of it, but as far as training to compete, that'll definitely take a pause for a while.
Yeah, we got a guy at the gym just finished his firefighter training, and he was basically non-existent in the gym that entire time.
Yeah, my goal, the way I see it, because I mean I've had really heavy training cycles for the Army, where like you're lucky if you can get in anything, and I know we'll do physical training probably 5 to 6 days a week while we're in the course. So my goal is to maybe have 2 days where I go to the gym and do like a 5x5 of squats and a 5x5 of deadlift, like 2 days a week.
Yeah, right.
just something to like touch the bar,
right?
But we'll see. I'll make that decision if I get to that point. But that's kind of the medium term plan. And then obviously once I get out of the firefighter, then that's when I would start the grad program, whichever grad program. And between the Cincinnati State, I think, Xavier, and there's another school here, they all have post-grad psychology programs. So I have some options. Nice.
I would totally echo that school is a lot easier when you're an adult. I try to do I went to community college right out of high school, and I just like I couldn't stop partying and drinking, and I just like did terribly. And then I actually got my culinary degree. I finished that because that was easy. And then I went and got my 4-year degree when I was 25. And man, and looking back, I was like, there's no way I would have done as well as I did if I would have tried to push through when I was 18, 19 years old.
Yeah. And going to a military school, I think actually helped me. It made it harder in one sense, but I think honestly, it just made it physically harder because of all the stuff we had to do. But like the structure it provided, I think helped me do better than I otherwise would have.
Right.
Because even with that structure, I still found ways to like not do well in the classes I didn't give a shit about. So I was like my like focus for my degree was international criminal justice. So like international law. Talked a lot about the ICC, like war crimes and stuff like that. And I aced all of those classes because you could sit me in a room and I talk about it for hours. But like my prereq math 104 class, I was like, please don't make me go to this class. I have a calculator on my phone, and that's the only math I need to know.
I was the opposite. I really liked the math classes. And then my like sociology and psychology I would take in the summer, so I could just cheat because they were online. Like just cheat my way through them.
Yeah, that's fair. I mean, that's the other thing is at the Citadel, they have a very strict honor code to the point that like if your roommate cheats and you know about it, you will get kicked out of the school.
Oh wow!
Not like a 3 strikes out or anything. So like legit, I'm sure some people get away with it. But like I cheated all the time in high school when they only had to give me that speech once because I had a 4-year scholarship. So like my family could not afford me to go to school. So if I lost that was it. And like didn't have a family business or anything that I could fall back in on.
Right.
You cannot mess this up. So
how would they prove that though? If your roommate was cheating, how would they prove that you knew?
I mean, that's the thing is they don't know all the time, but like there's certain ways that people did get kicked out for it. So like the honor code was you don't lie, cheat, or steal, or tolerate those who do. And all of those were one-time punishable offenses. And so obviously there could be times where you could get away with it. It wasn't worth the risk to me, but also because they like with the tolerate those who do, they help with peer enforcement because if my roommate cheats and I know that someone else finds out, tells about it, and because we have barracks rooms where we are next to each other in the same room, there's a good chance I would be put in question. So it's always like, well, I have to tell so somebody doesn't tell on me. But also everybody agrees, all of my friends, we agreed with snitches get stitches. So the real principle was like, don't put your friend in a situation where they have to lie for you.
Right.
That's a shitty friend in my opinion.
Yeah.
And so that's one of the things. It's like, we're not gangsters. Like, no, we're not doing like, not going to the cops because, you have a brick of cocaine and under your bed or something. It's like, no, why did you cheat? And why did you tell me that you cheated? Because now I'm going to get kicked out too. So you're just being a shitty friend now.
Yeah. I hear that.
Yeah. So that's one thing I'm actually super proud of, because I realized that was pretty rare. I mean, my grades, you can look at my GPA and show that I did not cheat. It's not like I didn't cheat at all and I got a 3.9. It's like, you look at my GPA and you're like, yeah, he probably didn't cheat.
That's awesome. Yeah, I don't know, man. If I had like a under a 3.0, man, I would totally use that. I'd be just like, it's that way because I didn't cheat.
Yep. 100%.
That structure's handy though.
What?
That formal structure of having it, I think that would make a big difference. Because especially when you don't know like what you're going to do with your degree and everything, it was so hard to care. I think my last semester I did very terribly, but I did have one English teacher who pulled me aside. I think we were only a quarter of the way into the semester. He said if I stopped coming to class, he would give me a C, because I was just like, nah, he didn't enjoy me being in the class, so I just stopped coming to class and ended up getting
That's
a
amazing.
Yeah, he was just like, if you just stop coming to class, like I'll just give you a C, like you can call it even. I was like, okay, I'll do that.
Yeah,
you should have upped the ante a little bit, man.
I should have been like, I will keep coming.
Make it a B, and it's a deal.
Yeah, when I went through college the first time, to your point of not really knowing what you want to do, I picked criminal justice because I was like, I'm going to be in the Army forever. Like, I'm going to be a general one day or whatever. Like, that's just how long, so who cares? And boy, was that a silly mentality. Because it's even sillier because I've known I wanted, like, I was interested in psychology since before I went to college the first time, but I knew I wasn't going to go to grad school because I was going into the Army right after. So I was like, what am I going to do with the psychology bachelor's? Let me tell you what I would have done with psychology bachelor's. A hell of a lot more than I did in the Army with a criminal justice bachelor's. Having a psychology degree would have helped me with so many more things, especially as far as like soldier and personality management and interpersonal skills. And I do think those are already my strengths, but like, you can always improve strengths. And that's probably why I enjoy psychology so much in the first place. I think people who fear psychology are generally the people who don't
probably need it the most.
They need it. But that's the nature of things. Everybody's like that. The enemy fears what they do not understand.
That's right. That's right.
I didn't think about that organizational part though. I like that idea of like, I have some books on like the science of organizational change and stuff. It's interesting when you think about that of like, how do you get 150 people to agree on something and like work towards these goals, especially when it's like changing how the whole organization approaches like work sprints or whatever, like all the agile transformations and that stuff.
Exactly. And so I'm obviously no expert in it yet, but one of the interesting things that we talked about is because the workplace changes so frequently, and actually we talked about how in 2020 the workplace changed more in a short time period than at any time since the Industrial Revolution. The psychology, those studies specific to industrial and organizational communities has to be done kind of like over and over and over again, because there's certain psychological principles and other practice disciplines of it that transcend time, like they're universal to a degree. Industrial and organizational is not, because the workplace changes. Obviously the work from home, teleworking, all that stuff plays a factor. So like your question of how do you get 150 people, how do you establish a culture, provide purpose, direction, motivation for 150 people to want to do something that they may inherently don't want to do? now add in the variable of that. Also, you don't see them in person except for once a week, and you have to do it through like this medium right here. It's a whole lot different.
I'm kind of always been of the mind that, so I worked remotely for several years, and my teams were incredibly productive. And I've always kind of been in the mind of if you can't get somebody to do the job that they're hired to do, then they're the wrong person anyway.
Yeah. Well, and that's a good point. And that's actually, that section led into how you hire people.
Right.
Like the systems in the last class we did was going over the different ways of selecting. But the hiring process starts with how you evaluate the job, or the job analysis itself. So like before you even start taking on applications, it's how are you representing this job as the employer and as the company? Because how you do that, if you don't do it well, you won't even be able to find the right people because you're not advertising for the actual job, which is an interesting aspect that I hadn't really thought of before.
Absolutely.
So that's why it's a little bit different than HR, and that's what you can see where it would tie in, like HR aspects, but like a normal HR rep isn't worried about that stuff. They're just making sure people are like safe and happy in the workplace.
Right.
Like, legally, everything is okay. But so yeah, that one interests me a lot.
Yeah, there's a lot of good tools too. My company uses I don't know if there's a lot more to it. I'm supposed to get certified at it. It's a culture index, and it's a series of questions in two different kind of paradigms. One is, who you are as a person, and one is who do you think that you need to be as an employee, and it scores you on various criteria. And ultimately, it gives employers a good sense of what kind of an employee you're looking at, or a potential employee or candidate. If they're somebody that's going to be most comfortable with repetitious tasks, right? Somebody that needs a lot of direction. Somebody like me who just you can shove in the corner and just put to work, and and it's been super beneficial. I'm actually really impressed with how accurate it is, especially for me. And my company has really capitalized on that in finding appropriate placement for their hires. And it's been, super successful.
Well, that's one of the things that like our professor that he mentions a lot is like, none of these, as a consultant, none of the stuff he does is like required. Companies aren't required to hire somebody like him, and because of that, a lot of times they're hesitant to do so because like, oh, it's expensive. We don't have that's extra time to do these job analyses and actually go through this full proven time and time again process for hiring the right people versus just hiring somebody who we think will do good at the job. The cost of hiring the wrong people almost always far outweighs hiring the right person the first time. But
repetitiously hiring people costs money for the same position.
Well, when you think of a company like as big as Amazon, and you have high level execs, that they can make one bad decision for the company that costs hundreds of millions of dollars.
Right.
So, but at the same time, I do believe companies like Amazon invest in these types of hiring mechanisms, just because of how much they have on the line. But I think it's those more medium level companies that will try and make that shortcut, and then they realize like, wow, we're spending way more money just hiring crap employees.
Most small companies and startups do I've been in a couple that are maybe not new startups, but it's a very startup environment. And you kind of find that most people that are, that start those companies or those divisions of companies really don't know what the hell they're doing. Right. And so, and it's not like a knock to them per se. But I think everybody that goes into business doesn't really know what they're doing until they get into business. And then as they grow, things either get out of hand or, good leadership identifies those problems and, puts processes in place to, capitalize on the growth and minimize costs. But I've been in some of those scenarios where small businesses they take tons of shortcuts, and a lot of it is just because they don't know how to do it better, right? Or there's laziness or incompetence, or you don't know what you don't know.
Yeah,
exactly.
And then egos get in the way sometime too.
Absolutely.
And by sometimes, I mean egos always get in the way. Because like you can have a really good idea about something, but like you alluded to, like that doesn't make you a good business person.
Right.
And the people who have too strong of an ego to understand that are often the people who fizzle out the fastest, regardless of how good the product or whatever the service is. If you don't have the humility as a business owner to like seek real advice and seek help from the experts that in those different fields, like you will fail. Which actually, as much as we haven't mentioned strongman in the last few minutes, I feel like that's a good segue into strongman and how, the rise and fall of certain events, great ideas fizzle out pretty quickly.
They do. And that's like, we talked, who was it? With Joe, why can't I say the name of his podcast, John?
Gym Life.
Gym Life. Thank you. Yeah.
Gym Life podcast.
Yeah, Gym Life podcast. We were kind of like talking about ranking all the various competitions, like the big competitions, World's Strongest Man, Arnold, the Shaw, and I was kind of the mind right off the bat, like World's Strongest Man is the best because it's been around the longest.
Mm-hmm.
And they've been around when numerous other organizations pop-ups came through.
Yeah.
Where the Shaw Classic, while it's doing well these last few years, is so new. And like you mentioned, there's been so many organizations and promoters that have come along with big ideas, and they fall by the wayside because of bad decisions, bad luck, whatever it may be.
Yeah. Usually it's a combination of the. Right. It's not necessarily a perfect storm, but it can be a combination of bad luck, egos, false promises, stuff like that.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, I wouldn't say that the organizations that do succeed are immune to any of those either.
They're not.
They just usually, I don't know if it's necessarily a system of checks and balances, because I know the organizations enough to know that that's not really something they have in place, but there is something that keeps it going.
Right.
So.
I mean, World's Strongest Man has managed to weather probably a lot of storms over the years.
Yeah. And they've had their negative, they don't have a clean record necessarily. No one does, but like, that's what I mean is no federation, organization, or show is immune to any of it. And that's why, like, when I hear, even at the local show, we'll just keep it low level, like, oh, this show is great. And it's like another promoter will say, well, they didn't have to deal with this. They didn't have to deal with that. And it's like, no, just they did, but no one else knew about it because they handled their shit.
Right.
It's funny because story of a friend who he left his position and he was replaced by somebody. And a month later, gets a text message from his replacement. It's like, I had no idea all the shit you had to do. And he was like, yeah, because it wasn't my job to make sure you knew the workload. It was my job to make sure that it got done and no one else knew otherwise. Right. And I think that's a level of responsibility that most, I don't want to say most, that most certainly isn't the right word. I think that's a level of responsibility that some promoters are not willing to take.
Right.
They want all the good parts. But just like being a good promoter, I think it's inherently a leadership role. And so there needs to be leadership competencies and principles that are adhered to. And I think blaming, especially athletes, when athletes get blamed, nothing makes me more upset in regards to a competition setting than when any athlete or the group of athletes is getting blamed for something.
Right.
Obviously, like if they, cheated or something, that's different. But I mean, like, if the athletes aren't hurt, I can't think of a good example. But like when promoters are yelling at athletes, I'm just are people not paying to be here for your show?
Thank you.
Like,
Amen.
Sort your shit out. We're here. You're providing a service. Granted, a poor service at this point. Direct your attention towards the people who are trying to help you and just solve the problem. You can do the after action report after the show. We can talk about the whys later. Fix it now,
right?
And then go to the next event or whatever. Like, solve the problem first. And this is so bad in the Army, and I learned this very early in the Army. So many people, a huge indicator on, like, I could tell on somebody's leadership capability on when somebody messed something up or a situation was messed up. The person in charge went after the person at fault before they fixed the problem, because you can go back a year later if you have to punish or rectify that relationship or whoever did something wrong. But the problem that is now affecting everybody is still imminent. So that needs to be addressed first. There's obviously, situations where that's not necessarily true all the time, but rarely, if ever, at a strongman competition is it about life or death. So, like, it shouldn't be. Like, I don't know why I've ever been, and I have been, at competitions where promoters are screaming,
oh yeah,
at athletes, and I'm just like, how is this? What is happening? Where are we? Is there an active shooter here? Why is he screaming at me?
Dude, I've been at nationals in both organizations and been just listened to screaming at all the athletes for just no reason. And I'm like, I'm with you 100%. And I think I've said it on the show many times. Like, we're their freaking customers.
Yeah.
And we're paying for a service, and there's nothing worse than paying $100, $150 or something and having a shitty experience.
Yeah. And because like, I get it. And I mean, for the most part, I think everybody who competes, especially at the higher level, they're adults, like, they're grown men and women, although we don't always act like that. And there are, I know we're giving promoters a lot of gruff right now, but like,
well, it's good promoters.
Yeah, there are promoters. There are
great promoters.
We're not. I mean, in my mind, I'm not highlighting the majority. If I was highlighting the majority of promoters, I probably would have stopped competing a while ago. Fortunately, at least in my experience, it's very few. In fact, athletes usually are more rambunctious than promoters.
Yeah,
yeah, which is that's the other side. It's like, you are a customer, but also you're not the only customer. You are one of many. So, like, sit down and learn your place. And I don't mean that like compared to other athletes, but like, there is the hierarchy of, like, you're not more special than all the other athletes.
Right.
You should be equal to them. So don't get a chip on your shoulder, whether you're more accomplished as far as trophies go or whatever, or less. Like, that's not what I'm referring to. It's like, when I show up to a competition, regardless of who's there, I'm an athlete just like every other athlete there.
100%.
They should get just as much warm-up time as I do, and vice versa. No one gets more because they mismanage their time and they think they're more special than whoever else is there based on their accolades. But that's not even unique to accomplished athletes. I see athletes who haven't done anything in the sport and still think that they are the cat's pajamas because they got 50,000 followers.
Because and they did a novice competition and got invited to nationals.
Yeah, that's wild. I do have a very close friend, Chris Phillips. He just did his first ever strongman competition. And he didn't do it to qualify for nationals. He did it. It was a USS one here at River City Barbell. It was a pretty well-run show. It's enjoyable. And he won. And he was really excited. I was really excited for him. And then, like, he goes, "Do I go get an invite for nationals for this?" And I was like, "I don't think so, because it's novice."
He does.
And then 2 weeks or like a week later, he sent me a screenshot of the email, and I go, "That's wild."
It's nuts. And now there's people like that will go and do a novice show just so they can just crush everybody because they know
that's why
the invite to nationals.
He's like, he felt a little bad because he was like, "I don't know. I felt like I was more experienced than the other guys, so like I feel bad for winning." And I was like, but it was your first show. This isn't like your 5th show and you've never won one competing against other people. And I was like, you didn't sign up. And he's like, I just felt like I was better than them. And I was like, yeah, that's why you got the trophy, Chris.
It's called strongman.
Yeah, it's like you were. That's why you got it. But I mean, I understood what he meant. But I mean, I wasn't going to tell him to go sign up for like the Rainier Classic for his first comp, you know?
Right. Well, I bet. Well, why not though?
Well, because he's not his full-time like focus. He travels all the time for work, and that was like the other thing. He's like in and out, and because it was his first comp prep, like it's not like he has everything already dialed in and he just has to work on it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it was local, it was close. Like he's not going to fly from Louisville, Kentucky to the Rainier for his first competition in hopes that it's, I mean, I wouldn't freaking do that. The only reason I competed in strongman in the first place is some guy was like, hey, you want to do strongman? I said, I don't know what that is. When is the competition? And he said, it's in 4 weeks. And I was like, sweet, can we train together? Because I have no idea what I'm doing. And then we went because it was in my hometown.
That's awesome.
And the rest is history. And that was 2017.
I got forced into a car and driven from Fargo, North Dakota to Des Moines, Iowa. And
That's called kidnapping.
It is. It is. They're just like, well, I stopped before getting in the car. I was like, I don't know if I'm ready for this. And they're like, shut
was
up.
That with James?
I think it was before James.
He's from Fargo, right?
Well, James and I more or less started strongman together. We used to train.
Yeah, that's I know that.
Yeah.
That's what I was asking.
But I think James joined us a little after that. I don't think James came to that one with us, but it was a Platinum Plus back when like Plat Pluses were still like a pro card, and they're just like shut the fuck up and get in the car and like drove me down, and I think I took second to last. But yeah, dude, I was hooked after that. I was like, I don't think we had novice shows back then, to be honest with you.
Yeah, I don't think novice because it was in Fairbanks, Alaska, and there's like the strongman community in Alaska is good. It's just not big, if that makes sense. Like the community's cool. They had USS and Strongman Corps up there, so we did both. Justin Loy and I did both because we started together. Now it's just USS. Matt Sadler, I think, is the chair for USS up there. His gym in Fairbanks is kind of, and his competitions are how Justin and I got started. But it's just like wasn't big enough. In fact, in 2018 for one of the comps, there was only one heavyweight. So it was like one heavyweight and like 8 middleweights. And so he moved down to our weights and just blew it. I think I beat him on one event, and it was a moving event, but I think that was it. He just,
I mean, you always need
press away. He did like 20 reps on the press away, and all of us got single digits.
Nice.
We were just like, but I was still young enough in the sport that I was unsure how the scoring was. Like I thought I was like doing that because I thought I was going to go to nationals, and I was just like, I can't believe my chances to go to nationals are ruined because there's no more heavyweights here in this town.
I don't know. They should have just done it like, I don't know. I guess SC and I don't know if USS had limits on how many people could be in a class, but in Canada, we like James and I used to go, and another guy used to go to do a competition in Altona, Manitoba, and they would it was all the same weights, and they'd just group us all together, but then they'd score separately. So we would literally, but if we beat the heavyweights, like we would take that spot, right? Yeah. Which I always thought was like a really good way to
I think that's how they did
run a
it.
show.
But in the because I think that was my second, maybe third show I'd ever done, and the first time that something like that had happened. So in my head, I was just like, "This guy's obviously got to win." Like I didn't know how the scoring went.
Right.
I was still, to me, and I keep this mentality to a degree still, even though I fully understand how scoring works. How I started was like, I just need to do the best I can at this event because the points don't matter. I just need to do better than everybody else.
Right.
Which is still how I go into each event. Occasionally, depending on the type of event and how early it is, there's a little bit of gamesmanship that I'll dabble in some gamesmanship. But I think the best strategy to win the game is to be the best at every event. If you do that, you don't have to worry about it.
You don't have to worry about it. Yeah.
Unfortunately, I haven't mastered that trait yet, but I am working on it.
I've attempted some gamesmanship in the past. As a matter of fact, I stopped doing it after I competed against Gabe Pena back in like 2019 or something. It worked on the deadlift. We were deadlifting, and I'm like, "How many reps has he done?" And I just did one more because the timer was coming out, and that's all I needed to do. I could have done a lot more, so I won that event. And then the last event was the stones, like total rookie mistake. You just go all out on the last event, right?
Yeah.
But I tried to be all gamesman again, and like I thought I was one ahead of him, and I asked him how many reps he had, and they gave me the wrong number, and I thought I was one ahead, and it turned out that I was actually one behind, and I slowed down and like lost the show.
The deadlift medley for Clash this year. It was the Zercher, the sumo, and the 635 for reps. It's going head to head with Clayton, and I had done 6 reps at 635. And I could tell because him and I were going head to head the whole time in the finals. So I knew I was beating him based on because we were facing each other. I did 6, and I look up, and I was like, what's the number to beat? He told me. So I did 2 more. But before I let go, and you see on the camera, I look up and like pause for a while. I said, I need you to verify that is the best score before I stop. And he like looked down and he's like, you're good. And so then I got up with a couple seconds left, but I was like, I am not making that mistake.
Right. Just go for broke.
Yeah. Well, like it was the second event, and I knew Clayton had crushed me on circus dumbbell.
Right.
Which I was just making sure I got points on the board for circus dumbbell at that event. Like I was never going to beat him or several of the guys who were there on circus dumbbell. Certainly not the best event, but I was pretty confident that Frank was probably the only one that was going to give me a run for my money on the deadlift medley. And then I think he hurt something the day before, so that one was probably, it would have been cool, especially since I didn't win and came in second. It would have been cool to see how much I got because I stopped with like 15 seconds left. But I feel like 10 times 635 after doing this Zercher.
But I mean, 10 reps, if that's in first, 15 doesn't make you more first.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
But yeah, not being shit at stones makes me first.
Yeah.
As history has pointed out. But we're working on it.
Yeah, dude. Andrew's stones, that was ridiculous at Clash.
Yeah. It's actually Bob Schwant's fault.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's funny. He hugged me and said he was sorry, but I was still like not really in the moment. And then he DM'd me later that night, and he was like, "Hey, I'm really sorry, man. That's my bad." And I said, "It's no one's fault that I lost, but mine." So it was like, I appreciate your sympathy, but I will never blame somebody else for my failure. But it's never the promoters. It's never the promoter's fault that you fail. I promise you that.
Right. Yeah. Well, I mean, unless the equipment falls apart and like.
Well, then that's the manufacturer.
Well, no, I mean,
obviously there's.
I mean, yes, it is, but also, I mean, the promoter should have validated that equipment before.
100%
putting it into competition.
No,
so there's some shared responsibility there.
I just don't see. I don't like when I see other people blame others for stuff that is very clearly individual responsibility.
Right.
Which you'd think you'd see less of in a sport that is truly an individual sport. But that I see it more. I see it at a higher level of team sports where people blame themselves more for the group failure than an individual sport.
Right, but that's why they're at a high level, because they understand how teamwork works.
Yeah.
But you do see it in strongman a lot. I've never been to a show anywhere and not heard somebody complain about the weights are heavier than what they were stating.
Or I haven't deadlifted. Oh, I trained on a Texas deadlift bar. I don't like Rogue. Or I've never. Why are we using Cerberus bars? They said we were going to use this bar. And it's like, well, Cerberus is a sponsor, so it would make sense that they use their bar. Also, 45 pounds or 20 kilos is still 20 kilos. And the extra or like, you know, the extra little bit of give or less give, depending on the bar, like that's not why you're going to lose, man. Everybody's using the same bar.
Everybody's using the same bar.
Yeah.
Everybody's pulling the same weight.
Or the kilo plates. Oh, I've never listened on kilo plates. And I was like, so I know you have to pull your phone out to calculate the difference of what they are, but they actually still occupy the same amount of or they have the same amount of mass, regardless of what.
Right.
You could say a 55-pound plate weighs 20 Dans. That's the new unit of measure. It's still going to weigh the same between both of us. So like, it's not the promoter's fault that you're so mentally weak that we'll call it adversity, even though that's not what it is. Like that,
the smallest amount of adversity.
Yeah, like the absolute smallest amount is going to throw you off. But I mean, I like it as a competitor who's still competing because I mean, like, I don't know. I was in the Army, so like the fact that there is equipment showed up at the place that it's supposed to be on time. That's cool for me. I was like, holy cow, there's stuff here. We get that's cool. But
I do.
Go ahead.
I do like when people like, I've seen people that are like, they want to lift on the exact bar. They're like, oh, it's a Kabuki deadlift bar. I need to find a gym that has that. Yeah. I'm like, if you're doing well on a power bar, you can just be good on whatever. Like,
I mean, obviously, like if you have the means to do it, by all means, like buy it ahead of time, or like if you want, like, there's nothing wrong with that. I'm a huge fan of you. If you have it, spend it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
it's the like, wait a second. The block I trained on was 23 centimeters, or like 23 inches. This one's 24. What the hell is wrong with you? You said it was going to be 23. And I'm seeing that conversation, like with all different types. And it's like,
what's the diameter of the log? How far are the handles apart?
I don't know, man. Big, bigger, biggest. Those are the logs we're using today. Good enough for me. But
yeah, just you got to show up strong, man. And that's at the end of the day, the people that win are the strongest. They're not the most efficient with that specific piece of equipment. They're just the strongest.
Yeah. I like we do briefly have to shout out Greg again, the story of him at Nationals, the 2018, when all the 242s were complaining about the weight on the bar. And they're like, this just can't be done. They're like, or deadlift, yeah. And they were complaining about it. And Greg just completely cold, asked for someone's figure 8 straps, went over, hit it for 2 reps and was like, seems doable. And just went back to just like judging. And he was like, people stopped complaining after that.
Right. Well, it was after like several people failed. Like they were just bombing it. And they started complaining like it's not the right weight and blah, blah, blah. And yeah, he just jumped up and it was amazing.
That was like the first clash. The car deadlift was so heavy. But then, like, of several of us, I think only like 3, maybe 4 out of the 11 finalists got any reps. But of course, Sean Shoemaker got like 12 reps, and we're like, yeah, we probably should have been able to do at least one.
Right.
It's so much a mental game, though. If you like approach a deadlift and you're like, any questions about it, and it's like at all heavy, it's so easy to just like psych yourself out about it, to just be like, I don't know what this is. And people love on the cars to like try to measure what they think the weight is at the top or whatever. Yeah. And I'm like, it's a variable.
Yeah. That's funny you say it. The first time I squatted 600 pounds was in Nick Best's garage. And I had told him at the time my max that I had done was like low 500s. And he was like, you're way stronger than you think you are. Go inside for a little bit. And so go inside, it comes out, and he has like a combination of steel, bumper, kilo, pounds, different color plates on the bar. And he's like, don't look at the bar. And I say that because it was crazy enough that like I couldn't just look and see how much it was. It wasn't like it had, 6 45s on each side. And he's like, look at me. He's like, you're gonna get under the bar, you're squat, and then we're gonna add more weight, and then you squat again. I was like, okay. So I did it and racked it, and it felt crazy heavy, but I did both reps. And he was like, you know how much you just did? And I was like, no idea. Like 450 or 550. And he was like, you did 585 and then 600. And I was like, holy shit.
Nice.
And that's when I realized, I was like, wow, these numbers don't mean anything. I am invincible. Yeah. But Yeah, it really is. It's crazy how much power the mind and how much power we give our own emotions towards lifting. And sometimes it's like overt, like saying I can't do that, and then sometimes it's just self-sabotage, and it's harder to identify because it's not as blatant as just being like, oh, I don't feel good in the gym today. It can just be as simple as not focusing on the task at hand.
Right. And I mean, a lot of it too, I think, is just, especially with deadlifts, it's just acclimating to being uncomfortable also. Because I mean, that's what deadlift is like, I'm getting back to deadlifting, and I haven't deadlifted hardly at all in a while. And I'm just finding, like, I think the strength is there for everything else, but for whatever reason, like, that the only thing that's stopping me with deadlift is like overcoming the shitty feeling of deadlifting again.
Yeah, for me, I had a mental block after hurting my back pretty bad. Coming back from that, from like not being able to even drive because of how bad the pain was, to like picking up a barbell from the ground was like pretty. It was a pretty big hurdle for me to get over, and like whether it was an empty bar or a pencil or 405, just being like bracing to pick up a pencil the same way I would to deadlift 700 pounds.
Yeah.
I was like that for a while. And there was times I'd come in the gym, if it wasn't like an ideal day, it could be a pretty lightweight, like even relative to me. And I would just psych myself out. Not because like I wouldn't even fail it. It was like I'd start pulling and just like, no, that's going to hurt.
Yeah.
But once I got over that, and actually the first time I did get over it was a 2022 Clash when I did I think 8 reps. It was 1 rep less than what McKeegan did on the axle. It was like 635, I think, is what it was. And I just like, the most I had done at that weight in training was 2, and I did 8. And that was just because I was like, well, who cares if I get hurt now? Like, we're here.
I hear you.
Yeah, I remember Terry came up. I didn't even have like finish getting off the platform, and Terry's like, did you just not actually send me your real videos for training deadlift? And I was like, no, where the fuck did that come from? I was like, I don't know. Apparently I can deadlift again. And since then I've done pretty well on deadlift. So now it's pulled 771 the week after ASM.
Very nice.
That was pretty awesome. It was I probably could have gone a little bit heavier. The problem is I jumped from 700 to 771.
Yeah, that's a big jump.
On Day Marinas, I was gonna do a bodybuilding because it was the week after. I was gonna do just like a hypertrophy like bro session or whatever by myself. And I was texting him and Jeff and a couple other guys, and I was like, maybe I should deadlift. And Sean, playing devil's advocate, was like, I will pay you $20 if you can deadlift over 750. And he's like, there's no way you can deadlift over 750 right now. Because again, it's after competition. And I had been training from the floor. Although I realized afterwards that training the deficit Ukrainian deadlift 100% helped my regular pull.
Yeah.
But I was like, okay, well, I've done 750. I'm not going to do 750 because I'm purely ego lifting right now. So I did 700. 700 felt super good. So I was like, sweet, we'll just throw on the yellows. Like, yeah. Throw on 2 15-kilo plates. Throw that on. Did it. Not a single soul in the gym. No music playing. And I did it. And I'm just like celebrating by myself. And then I turned the camera on and I was like, what a depressing, anticlimactic way to deadlift 771. It's like zero. But then because of that, I was like, sent the video to Sean, a group of guys, and I was like, pay me my money. I was like, the only
did he pay you up?
Oh, he did. He did.
Nice.
Sean's a man of his word.
Yeah.
And his response to the video is something along the lines of, holy shit. And obviously Sean has deadlifted 800, maybe even more, but he's done 800 a couple of times, even in competition. So he was just like, damn you. But so I got to see if my suit fits. I have it out. I haven't tried it on. I haven't worn it since, honestly, I think the last time I wore it, definitely the last time I wore it in competition. This wasn't the last time I wore it, though. Last time in competition was when I first met you, Darren, and we competed at the Ronnie Coleman.
At the Ronnie Coleman.
Yeah. That's actually the only time I've worn it in a competition.
I think that's the last time I've worn mine in a competition.
Yeah. So I dug it out this week. I gotta look. I know my program's done, but I already did day one. I don't know what I'm doing for deadlifts yet, but excuse me.
What kind of deadlift suit do you have?
It's the black Velcro one everybody has. I think Metal Gear.
Is it the Metal Jack or the Pro? Because I have the Pro, but I ordered a Jack. Because I'm going to need all the help I can get.
That Metal Jack, that's an intense one.
I'm just worried. I'm worried mine's going to be too tight.
There's no such thing.
Well, for the medley though, for the movie,
maybe.
That's what I don't mean too tight. Like obviously, I don't really think there's too tight for.
Well, there probably. I mean, there is. I mean, there's too tight you won't get.
Yeah,
but
because mine's always been really tight in the hip area. I might, if nothing else, I might have to get a freaking cup to wear because I do remember the last time I wore it,
balls get shoved up in your throat.
Yeah, and it's like and I didn't realize it though. It was like I got situated right, but as soon as I like put tension into the bar and started pulling, it was just like.
Yep. Oh yeah, that's the joy of wearing a deadlift suit, man.
Whoever I was with was like, "You okay?" And I was like, "No,
I don't know, man. I thought about wearing a cup too, but then I think your like pelvis is gonna get bruised.
Yeah,
you're gonna be walking like a penguin afterwards, man.
I'd rather a bruise on my pubic bone than sterility. So,
well, I mean, are you planning on having kids? I mean,
not like this week, but like, I would like to maintain the option.
Dude, that's still crazy to do it for a medley or a ladder. Like any sort of moving event with a deadlift suit is not.
Sucks.
Yeah, it sucks so bad trying to keep that tightness.
I haven't done it, but everybody say keep it a little bit looser.
Yeah.
But I don't think a lot of people usually finish the last bar anyway because they've done it the last.
Man,
I think this will be the third out of the last 4 years that they've done this medley, and it gets heavier every year.
But I think it was 800 last year too. It was 265 3 years ago.
Yeah, it's
2 years ago.
I think it gets heavier every year. I don't think
I have to go back and look. I thought it was 800. I thought it was the same weights last year, but
you
could be right. You could be right.
I'm only going off of what I believe were the reactions of like Camby and Loy who did it, and they're like, that's crazy because so few people even got the last one and they still made it
heavier.
Which is
must be expecting John Hack to show up.
Yeah.
His deadlift thing, that's like
that was wild.
It's crazy because he just like braces and just goes down and just like levers it up, and you're like,
what I think is crazy is how the disparity between his static lifts and like the top 90 kilo static lifts, but how much better all around athletes they are than him.
Right.
I think that's pretty crazy.
Yeah. I mean, he's pretty athletic for not really training strongman.
I'm not saying he's unathletic. I'm just saying, like, I think an outsider to the sport would look at somebody like John Hack or what's that guy who just did the deadlift champion? Jamal Browner, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
They look at their lifts and they're like, these guys have got to be stronger than whatever. But then they rarely actually win. Even
but I mean, Hack took third in his first show.
Well,
I mean, that's
yes, I know it's impressive.
Super impressive.
Also, his deadlift's like 300 pounds higher than anybody else he competed against.
See, this is where I like the kind of blows my mind a little bit is the discrepancy between his deadlift and the current world record in the U90s. I mean, even
I don't know those numbers.
Even if he put a suit on, he would crush the U105 easily.
Because he has
409
raw. 409 raw, and then the strongman equipped record is 401.55, which is an impressive lift.
Straps, right?
Dan Benson, we do.
Yeah.
It was impressive and everything, but it's still just a remarkable like feat to like pull as a 198, 903 pounds and like lock it out really well. Like no hitch, no like It's just
didn't John Heck
monstrous
just
thing.
do a 900 pound in the gym recently?
Oh,
Probably.
he did actually
Didn't
just
he do
like
didn't he do like a 908?
yeah, he did. He was like
I remember because I liked it, but I liked it with a face of disgust. Like,
Yeah,
I'm gonna like this lift, John, but I'm not proud of it.
because he posted and he was like first like
900
over 900
yeah,
pound pull
of
of
this
the
prep.
feels good, and it moved like he could have done it for like a triple
it moved like my 600 pounds.
Yeah, no, it was like, and that's the crazy thing is watching him like when he talks about like doing a light day where he'll do like all 3 lifts. He's like 900-pound deadlift, 700-pound squat, 540 on the bench, and you're like, that's an insane like to be doing over a 2,000-pound total. It's just like a training, like just your standard day of like.
I can do it over a 2,000 pound total if I got to double everything.
Yeah.
It's wild though, but it is his moving thing. He did surprise people with that, with the chaos thing.
He does have an athletic background. I've listened to him on Mark Belt. He does have an athletic background. It's just because I hear other people. I'm trying to think the most common one. There's somebody. Oh, I used to get this when I would work fitness. Is it Julius? It was the super
Maddox.
Yeah, Julius. Insane bench, but that's
dude, insane.
Like what he does, right? And I think he does do some of the other ones, but he's not known for his other lift.
Right.
And
but benchers that bench that big are huge squatters.
Yeah.
Because it takes really powerful legs and
back,
core strength and back to be able to bench like that.
But when he was like making those records, like seemed like every 6 months at the time, that was when I was working a lot of fitness expos and stuff for the Army. People would be like, "Are you stronger than Julius Maddox?" I'd be like, "I mean, not in the. What do you think a world record is?" So no one is stronger than him at bench right now. But like,
he weighs 400. He weighs like twice of what you.
Yeah, like that's not the same. Like, well, do you think he's stronger than Brian Shaw? And it's like, again, at bench press, yes, but that's not what they do. That's a fun conversation.
For the average layman, though, the only thing that they understand is bench press. Like, because like everybody asks me, that's the first thing. How much do you bench? I'm like, I don't know.
You'd think eventually we would start working on our bench press because I think that's a time. That's a tale as old as the sport of strongman. I think everybody's like, yes, no, I don't know what I bench. Like, all right, you work out, but you don't know how you bench. Actually, my favorite you work out story is I was buying dog food. It was during the AFC NFC finals last year. Guy's watching the game on his phone, and I'm just standing there, just there to buy dog food at a feed store. And he was like, "Who you going for?" I was like, "What are you talking about?" And he was like, "The game. Like, who are you cheering for?" I was like, "I don't watch football." And he was just dead serious. He goes, "So you're just big for no reason." And so now a fun thing in my wife's friend group in their work, because she told them that story. Every time I do anything that involves strength, they're like, "Oh, Dan's just big for no reason, not even helping anybody." So that made me feel good about myself because I came home. I did a lot of introspection after that conversation, and I was like, he brings up a good point.
He makes
why am I the way that I am?
So I always argue, like, I always thought it was odd that and there's still people that say that strongman is functional, and I'm like,
to a degree,
but like when you're 250 pounds, man, like you're not going to outrun the cannibals, dude.
Nah. You're really just going to be a bigger target for them.
You're just going to be a bigger target and probably a tastier one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, it's really not functional at all.
It's not. Like, I mean, how many times do you pick up like a giant concrete marble and put it on a shelf?
Every day.
Every day. Well, you do, of course. But I mean, like average people, like,
no,
it's not functional.
I mean, it helps when I move, which we've lived in 6 states in the last 8 years. So like it has helped like once a year.
Being strong is helpful.
Once a year, it has helped. That's not including competition.
But like to me, like functional is like everyday, something that helps everyday activities.
Yeah.
That's functional to me, or something that I don't know. I still think like running is more functional than strength, but
I know what you're saying. I think,
and I don't run. And I don't run.
No, I know you
don't get me wrong. I don't want to run. But
when I was more of a meathead and less of a empathetic person, I used to truly believe that running is for cowards because only cowards run from their problems.
Sure. But you got it. But I mean, it still helps to run towards your problems too. I mean,
no, you just stand and fight.
Just stand and fight.
You just stand. The enemy will come to you.
Yeah.
No, but I think, like, I saw a guy yesterday doing these, like, they're kind of like a variation of bear crawls, but they're a little bit more plyometric, like more explosive. And my first thought was, what is going on here? But then I observed him and I was like, that guy could probably kick my ass. I was like, he is way more explosive than I am. And I'm looking at his movement. I was like, I should probably do more stuff like that. Like, because I feel really good when I'm warmed up, but I'm not old enough to be like, because I'm 32. I'm not old enough to the point where like I should have to warm up to walk my dogs outside. And
right.
most of the time I'm not, but like yesterday was my first day of comp preps. Like I did events, I didn't go crazy heavy, like 80%, did some lighter singles on squats, but like this morning I woke up and I felt pretty achy. And obviously I'm not actually going through like a full warm up to walk my dogs, but like I shouldn't feel that stiff to just walk down the street.
Right. Dude.
And I feel like I shouldn't feel that much better after like a half a mile walk the way that I do. Like I don't feel gassed. I'm just like, wow, like I feel loose. It's like I feel like how I feel right now. Normal people feel when they get out of bed.
Right. I want to circle back to the running thing, like turning your problems. Like fair, your enemy's gonna come to you, but being a firefighter, dude. A fire might still come to you too, but like,
what do you think PPE is? The fire can surround you. Look, I'm not a doctor of firefighting yet. I haven't gone to school. So absolutely nothing I say.
I mean, the fire will come to you, but I think the idea is to put it out before it does. So just. Yeah.
I will say that the Bible does talk about running.
Thank you for taking a joke and turning it into my official stance on fighting fires.
There was an underpinning point there that had to be made.
That's true.
I promise you, Cincinnati Fire Department, I will run upstairs and fight fires. I will not stand and wait for the fire to come to me.
Stairs are a different game, though. Of like watching them train with like. You're weighing like 40 pounds of equipment and just running up like 12 flights of stairs. Like,
yeah, that's why I'm calling the OSG the medley with the pack and carrying stuff and running and dragging. Yeah. I'm just calling that the firefighter medley.
There you go.
That really is what it is.
Yeah. I don't know how much their tanks weigh, but at first, me and Frank Provenzano were talking when they released the weights. Frank was in the Army as well, and he sent it to me and he goes, whoever put this as 100-pound pack has never carried a 100-pound pack. And that was my thought at first too, because 100 pounds is a lot to carry, but the way we were approaching it was like for a long time. Wearing a 100-pound pack for what is basically going to be like 150 meters is definitely doable. And I remember as soon as I put it on, I was like dreading it because I was thinking about the last time I put like a 120-pound pack on and walking through mountains and stuff. But I put it on and I was like, oh, this is way different.
How do you feel like having that weight on your back though and picking up a sandbag? Like I did 60 pounds and I was like, this is gonna.
It requires a little bit of a technique adjustment just because you do have to. Maybe you could situate it better. My biggest fear was that it would just dump forward.
Yeah.
So it wasn't. I don't necessarily think the weight, because I did sub weight for the sled and the bags, but I did 100 pounds in the pack itself. I think it helps more than it hurts on the drag. I think the bags,
I felt like it was a big good morning or it was like a cross between a good morning and RDL, just with that extra leverage on the upper back.
I felt like I didn't get a good video of me picking the bags because I had the phone kind of where the sled was. But it felt more like my torso was more upright than it would be normally lapping a bag. But I felt like once I got the bag up above my hips, the weight was a good counterbalance. Right. So I could stay more upright and I'm more focused on just squeezing the bag as opposed to squeezing it and keeping it over the center of my hips.
Yeah, nice. I don't have a Go Ruck. I just threw a bunch of just vests over there, weighted on the front of the bag. Sucked because then I'm I have weight out in front of me too that's getting in the way of the sandbag. But
I got mine.
It's better than nothing.
Free about a year ago. No, when was that? I got mine for free for a trip. I had to participate in a Go Ruck event, and me and my buddy won. And they're like, "You guys can keep those."
Nice.
And then I was like, "Okay,
keep it handy."
Well, yeah. And I was like, "I'm never going to use this." So I'm going to sell it because it's like $250 worth.
Right.
But then we started to move and all that. And I was like, okay, whatever. So I I had a bunch of gym equipment that I was planning on selling anyway. But I was like, I'll just do that once we move. Then they announced the event. I was like, I am so glad I didn't sell this.
Right.
But
you're kidding, man.
So it only came with a 45-pound plate. So I still have to stuff some 25s in there. But that was very convenient.
Yeah.
But, yeah, I've had several people DM me and be like, "You went and bought one?" And I was like, "No. For one event." I was like, "I'm gonna buy this." There's not gonna be another strongman event that they're gonna use.
Right, never, dude. I mean, even when I bought a Stone of Steel, I only had it in one show.
Yeah, there's certain things I really want to buy a circus dumbbell, because that's something that's always gonna be used. Right. I need it because I'm at a new gym. This gym training out here, RTS barbell in Cincinnati, is freaking awesome. So it's not it wasn't created to be a strongman gym per se. They do have stones. They got strongman equipment, but that wasn't its purpose. Where the sole focus is. So there's some implements that I want to get and put in there, but it's an excellent training facility. It's super clean, which I love. I can appreciate the grungy aspect of strongman and the blue collar aspect as someone who grew up in that environment. However, if we continue to treat strongman as a blue collar sport, it would always reap blue collar rewards in return on investment. And so when I see that, especially when it's places that I know can afford to expand, and I don't even need the facility itself doesn't have to be new, but you can buy a vacuum for $110. I got my DeWalt shop vac from Amazon. It's $120. And that thing freaking crushes German Shepherd hair and spider webs and all that. Mop the floors and wipe stuff down.
My gym just has one of those little push things that has the brooms I don't know what the hell it is. It's a yellow thing, and it's just manual, but they run it through their constant. My gym's really clean too. And
Kevin keeps it so clean, and that's why you walk in there. All the equipment is so nice. All their machines are Arsenal equipment.
Nice.
And then all their barbells.
We hate Arsenal. Just I want to point that out.
Oh, do we?
We do.
John and I do.
Arsenal strength. Arsenal athletics is fine, but Arsenal strength.
Yes.
And the football team's probably.
I don't know the difference between any of those.
Yeah, I'm sure they make really nice equipment.
But and then all rogue plates, and it's got an ollie section with all the flush platforms, not the elevated ones. It's great.
Nice.
They got a ton of stuff.
Yeah, the elevated ones suck, man. It's such a tripping hazard.
Yeah, so they have those for the deadlift section to put bands on and stuff. But when I'm doing cleans and all that, I there's not a tripping hazard. Especially you've seen probably how much I like to walk around when I get weight locked out overhead.
Yeah, right. So exactly.
Worry about the walk off of an 1.5-inch drop. So.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about.
But it's great. So hopefully we'll get a bigger strongman scene there in the future. They got a good bit of power lifters, so hopefully I can convert some of them.
Powerlifting gyms are always good. I mean, because you can do just about everything you need to do Or I mean, you can do the bare necessities in a powerlifting gym at least.
Yeah. Yeah. And I got my Denny Stone handles. I've brought a bunch of sandbags in. So that's been good. People saw me doing the Denny Stone handles and they're like, well, Strongman looks cool, but I don't think I'm going to do that.
Well, that's a really terrible event.
Yesterday was the first time I've done it. And it was the side of my left leg is super bruised.
I can imagine.
And I still don't have feeling in my left thumb. So.
That's why I was kind of thinking it is probably best to just not train that.
Yeah, I don't know if it's one of those things that I'll train every week.
That duck walk, man. I just like that. I just stopped training duck walk. When we had that in 21, I did it once and my thighs were so bruised. I'm like, I'm not doing it again.
I remember I trained with somebody, I forget who it was during that same comp prep. And they're like, yeah, do yours get bruised? And I lift up my shorts and it was just black and blue.
Yep.
And we hadn't even started on duck walk yet. And I'm like, today. And I was like, well, the bruise is going to hurt regardless. So,
dude, no thanks.
So I told Pinkerton yesterday, he said he's trying hook grip. He's like learning hook grip. And I said, there's nothing to learn. You just grip it and pull it.
I don't understand hook gripping Denny Stones because they don't rotate.
Yeah, but it's I mean, you can not hook grip them. That's fine. I'm going to hook grip them. It works for me.
Okay.
That's what we've always wondered because they don't rotate. But some people say it really works, though, that extra.
So in Highland games, like it's really common to hook grip. But the concept.
You guys walk with them in Highland games?
I think in Scotland they may do some. And then there was the
nickel stones or whatever.
The stones of strength or whatever in Florida here recently where they did Denny Stones. But I mean, that's not a event in Highland games.
Yeah. For me, I do it because they bounce around so much.
Right.
So like because again, yesterday was the first time I've done it. You pick it up, especially at subcomp weight. My first thought was like, this is light. And then you walk first couple steps are easy. And then once they start moving, and I have long legs. So as soon as I take a stride too long, the weight swings in. So the best way to only have to worry about how I'm manipulating my legs in relation to each stone swinging is to just lock my hands in, and then I don't have to think about grip at all. All I'm focusing on is making sure I'm keeping the perfect gait, so that the weight doesn't throw me off balance. Because you have to find, you should air this after OSG, by the way, or just cut this out and air it because I don't want to give away any of my secrets. Any of my secrets.
I'm sure a lot of people are going to hook grip because it's pretty common, but
yeah, you just got to balance how fast can you move your feet without increasing your gait, which is counterintuitive to all the other moving events, because you may shorten your gait a little bit if the weight is at the top end, but you're still trying to get like the maximum reach without losing stability. And Denny Stones are not like that. It's finding the speed and frequency over the length of your stride.
Right. 100%.
So it was fun getting used to it.
Yeah. But I was going to say, so in Highland games, so it's all throwing, right? And it's lightweight. It's lightweight, but a lot of guys will hook grip. And I've actually started hook gripping too, like weight for distance. I tried it on weight over bar, but I didn't like that so much. But what it kind of does is it lengthens your arm a little bit and helps you stay loose. But my grip is actually more secure without it than with. I've actually lost my grip more trying to hook grip because it basically, I mean, it really kind of effectively makes the handle thicker. Now, some of them are, I mean, they're not thick handles, but I don't know. It's just kind of weird. It's a weird concept to me still, like to hook grip things that don't rotate, because that's the whole purpose of a hook grip, right? Is like a rotating bar grabs your thumb and pushes it in and stops it from rotating. That's what makes the grip better. It's not the, and that doesn't do anything on a non-rotating bar. So I don't know. Yeah. Something to work. I mean, something to experiment. If it works for you, it works for you. But
yeah. It does feel. I will agree that it feels weird because if you go back and watch my videos, the first two. So I did 3 like working runs. The first 2, I spent so much time like trying to get my hands in because I know what hook gripping on like a deadlift bar or power bar feels like.
Yeah, it sucks.
So I'm like waiting for that sensation, and I keep adjusting my hands. It's like, why does this feel weird. And then I
Right.
went back and practiced a few times just gripping it. And I was like, it's not going to feel normal. Just grab your thumbs.
Right. Yeah. Right.
So it's wildly uncomfortable.
I can imagine. I mean, a ring. Yeah, that doesn't.
Yeah, I've never had a bruise on the top of my thumb, but I have 2 lines on my thumb.
Nice. I was like, I don't know. My thumbnail always cuts into my thumb, and then my thumbs hurt for like a week or 2 after I took grip. Anything. Yeah, it's a good time.
You just gotta do what Evan Singleton does and smash your head against the wall.
Yeah,
so you
I've
don't
done
feel
that.
the pain in your hands.
I've done that before.
I actually 10 out of 10 don't recommend.
Yeah.
But
don't want to give yourself a concussion before you go for a big PR.
Especially before deadlifts.
yeah,
Just watching him warm up, just like the way he approaches things is always impressive. Just like pure fury.
Super intensive.
Yeah. It's like the opposite of like Novikov, who's just like a silent technician.
that's interesting. That's actually one of the concepts that years ago got me really into like sports psychology, and because like obviously you identify how different those 2 athletes are, but they're both very successful. I mean, Novikov more so by winning World's Strongest Man, but having like 2 totally different approaches, and that's because people are wired differently, and it's actually like you have different chemical responses to the same stimuli, which I thought was pretty interesting.
Yeah.
I'm kind of like, I would say I'm more in between, more towards Novikov's way, but for certain events like deadlift, I'm a little bit more reckless. I try not to hit.
But you can be, because it's pretty technically, I mean, it's a technical lift, but it's not, it doesn't require the stability of an overhead or a yoke run.
I'm right here.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, I'm with you. I'm way, like, I don't like ammonia, and I almost never use it.
I don't think I've touched it in like 2 years.
On
maybe
a rare occasion, I might use it on deadlift, but it's a very, very rare, because because you can be a little bit more reckless. Like, I can still pull a deadlift bar.
More just
It's just raw grit. Yeah.
Especially once you've practiced the movement enough and you have it down, you focus less on it. Like my philosophy is, especially for static lifts, like don't do poor form in training. You can do poor form on test day, which is a competition, but like, so you're training your body.
So you don't practice to hitch.
Yeah.
Practice hitching.
No, which is like, I do understand the counter argument to that is like, there does come a time in a competition where you may need to hitch. I don't know what the balance is of like the first hitch I do in the year, like of an entire year, is like on the competition floor. I don't know.
I feel like hitching is so natural that I don't need to train it. If it happens, it happens.
I have to like pause and reevaluate my whole life once I get to that. The only thing I'm thinking, if I know I'm about to have to hitch, all I'm thinking is get it above your knees, get it above your knees.
Right.
And then we can reevaluate the situation.
Right.
Yeah, hitching's not natural to me. Probably because I like refuse to do it in training.
Yeah. I don't do it in training. And I don't know if I hitch. I ramp more than I hitch. So like, that's pretty natural to me to kind of just get it on the thighs and just kind of drag it up my thighs. But yeah, I don't train hitching either. Very, very rare that I hitch at all.
All the heaviest deadlifts in the world, like Half Thor's and John Hacks, like there's no hitching there. So I think there is some merit to reducing the amount of hitching people do.
I mean, there's a lot of merit to just having strong posterior chain.
Yeah. But I think you get more. I don't know. I'm not a doctor.
It sounds like you're becoming one, though. So
yeah, but
you get partial credit.
You say that. Different type of doctor. So, well, somebody she's a nurse, and she responded to my story because I said my tibias. I no longer have tibias or whatever I said on my story today. And she was like, well, that's weird because those weights are hitting your fibulas. And I was like, look here.
That's amazing.
I was like, we don't talk regularly.
Awkward.
So you went out of your way to comment on this. Just to make me feel stupid. And also to all my close friends out there who may or may not have noticed the difference, shame on you for not correcting me.
Yeah. Well, hey man, it's we actually like to end these at an hour. We're at an hour and 40 minutes.
Damn, you could probably cut out a good portion of the beginning where we didn't talk about strongman at all.
No, that's why we start. That's why we start the recording, because like we always get on good conversations that may or may not be. This is not always strongman. It's, I mean, technically, it's world's strongest opinions, and there's no. I guess there's a connotation that it's strongman, but.
Yeah,
that's true. Because
there's also a connotation that we want to just talk shit. So,
because you're the world's strongest Star Wars fan, what's your strongest opinion about Star Wars that's controversial? Do you have one?
Oh, that's controversial,
or just your strongest opinion in general? Most people have ones that can be somewhat controversial.
This isn't really controversial, but it's something to say for all Star Wars fans. Well, not all Star Wars fans. For the Star Wars fans who refuse to watch the cartoons, but claim that they're still interested, but then have an opinion about live action stuff because they don't understand the continuation or references from other canon publications, whether it's games, books, comics, or other series. I hate when they critique new content based off of uninformed opinions, which that concept really translates to like anything. I hate when people like are super passionate about a topic that they don't have any knowledge about. I mean, I see it all, the same thing in strongman. You see it all the time. People who see one post from one person who's not a promoter, maybe loosely not affiliated with a competition, and they take it and they just run it through and just try and make it into something. And really it's like, oh no, that was a text from someone who's not involved with the show at all. I saw it leading up to America's Strongest Man. They're like, they don't even know what I forget what it was. There's something that got messages about, like, oh, how do you guys not know what X was? I really don't remember what it was. And I was like, we've known about this for like 3 months. And they're like, well, someone told me. I'm like, what? You're not even competing. Why do you care? You're not seeing the show. Why do you care how much I'm getting paid or what day I'm getting paid? And it's always just stupid fucking gossip. Everybody's trying to tear everybody down. And I hate it. I hate it. In a sport like this, if you can't say something nice, you shouldn't say anything at all. And I say the same thing about Star Wars, which is how I'm bringing that back around. So about Ahsoka, which I'm about to watch here shortly, episode 7, super excited for that. Like, you need to watch all of them before you come at me with an uninformed opinion about something because it rubbed you the wrong way. I have not been able to like explain a complaint out by just using other content that's out there. And they're like, oh, well, I don't like this person. And I was like, well, yeah, but they're intentionally cast that way because of XYZ. And they're like, well, I didn't know that. I'm like, then why did you come at me so hard? But yeah, so sure. I don't know if that's controversial or not.
No, I think that makes sense of like learn everything you can. Sometimes it can be hard to keep track of everything with like Marvel movies where you're like, I don't understand what's happening right now because I didn't watch WandaVision or something. And people are like, just watch 16 episodes of this show so you understand this movie you paid.
Yeah, exactly. Well, exactly. And I don't expect everybody to sit down and waste their life away like I have watching Clone Wars and Rebels and all of them.
Clone Wars is good though.
But Clone Wars is good.
It's not, I'm 100%, let's be clear. I am not condemning people who have questions. I'm more than happy to answer questions. It's people who have these like not opinions, but these seemingly strong convictions about either Star Wars or like different strongman organizations with really little to no knowledge. And so if you come to me and you ask a question like, hey, I didn't understand this, or hey, what's going on with this? It's yes, by all means, I'm an open book, answer questions. It's still like, I can't believe this happened. And it's like, because it didn't. But yeah. So Star Wars fans and strongman fans are a lot alike. That's what we look here today.
People in general.
It's just people in general.
Yeah.
No, that can't be it. It has to be.
Yeah.
They're directly correlated. You've done the psychology. You've seen the Venn diagram of Star Wars and strongman.
The more you like strongman and Star Wars, the more you're willing to just wrongfully accuse people of doing things that and I found what I'm going to write my doctoral dissertation on.
There you go.
So thank you guys.
Yeah. All right, man. Any final? I mean, maybe those were your final words, but
yeah, they were. But I'll plug Cerberus as always.
There you go.
Cerberus, I use all their gear. They're wonderful. Also, if you need to buy the Denny handles or any of the equipment, I think for OSG, use my code DHughes at checkout. Save some money. Also, because I don't think anybody's going to be able to get a hold of the actual bags that we're using for the event. I mean, Cerberus bags, good replacement as any for whatever the unique ones they're going to get. And then also, if you're ever in Cincinnati, check out RTS Barbell. Excellent 24-hour facility, day passes, week passes, monthly memberships, all that stuff. That's cool, it. Man. Appreciate you guys having me on.
Yeah, thanks for coming on, man. Yeah. Been a great conversation, dude.
You guys have a good night.
You too.
We hope you enjoyed this episode, and don't forget to like, subscribe, share, and follow us on Instagram for updates. We'll catch you next time on World's Strongest Opinions.